So we just did the chain swap. Had a little debacle. So if you watch go watch the other video on how to do the chain, cut a chain off, put a new chain on, change the rear sprocket. And I had a problem with the adjustment range on this bike where the adjusters wouldn't go forward enough, so I couldn't get the wheel where I wanted, because I had to determine how many links to cut off. So then I had to cut with it 2 links longer, but then it was almost out of adjustment the other way, whereas I almost couldn't get it to the right slack, and there'd be no room for adjustment when the chain stretches over time. But if I cut 2 links shorter, it wouldn't, I couldn't get the wheel forward enough. So I go over to cycle gear, and at that point, I already cut the chain. So I was like, shit, you know what, I could probably go and just swivel the adjusters around and maybe get a new master link, cut a couple links off, remaster it. So get over to cycle gear, and of course, they never have master links for any of the chains they carry, ironically. I'm like, well, damn it. So $150 later, I buy a new goddamn gold chain to replace the one that I now have to cut off that has been on the bike for all of an hour. So I come back and I'm like, all right, well, I'll flip the adjusters around that the little screw pushes at because they're longer on one side than the other, and that'll give me some extra adjustment range. So I'm turning the screws in after I've already cut the chain off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put those adjusters, flip them around. And as I'm putting the bolts in, I'm like, wait a minute, the screw on the right does screw in a lot further than the other one. So I go in there, and apparently there's just some machining crud up inside there. So when I was screwing it with my hand, it really firmed up, and I'm like, well, I don't want to strip the thread, so I stopped. I assumed it was bottoming out. I'm not used to bottoming out. So so anyway, it goes in. I then carefully take a wrench and turn it, and I was able to get it in all further. I was able to get that extra 1/4 inch, which is what I needed. So I cut the new chain to the length that I wanted to cut the old chain at, put it all together, and boom, it works. So we're out. We got 2 teeth up on the rear. And I notice it pulls nicer starting. I don't have to slip the clutch as much. Auto blip didn't seem like it wanted to work there for a minute. So anyway, yeah, so now we're going to go out and take it for a little spin and just see how this thing feels. I think we're going to go left, see if we can hit Cash Road. As soon as this guy gets out of here. Jesus Christ, dude, go. This is a bad intersection. When we moved out here, it was like, hey, let's move out to almost the country. And then a week later, everybody else in the state had the same goddamn idea. So, like on a Friday afternoon or something like that, or really any day, after 5 o'clock, it could take you 25 minutes to get through this intersection. It's insane. Oh, effortless little wheelies now. It's definitely scooping the front up more. It's climbing through the revs faster. Ah, beautiful. But the quick shift is not working on downshift. Or maybe you have to be on the gas. I've noticed a difference between Ducati quick shifters and others. On some bikes, you can close the throttle and still down blip. On the Ducati, you got to stay on the throttle a little bit. That's why it wasn't working. Huh, all right. It's like the Yamahas would, or the Kawi's would. I forget what it was. Or maybe the Aprilia would. And then this is more like the R1, where you had to be on the gas at least a tiny bit for the auto blip to work. Don't know why. But I guess once you know that, you're used to riding the bike that way, it's fine. Alright, so apart from the hard seat, apart from, you know, for me, the suspension's not enough for me to ride this thing hard. I mean, I could go at a quick pace, but I mean, ideally, it's sprung way too soft for a person my size. It's great for commuting and going down the highway, and if you're just tooling along, it'll soak up all the bumps. It'll be very compliant. But I believe these are progressive springs, so now I'm, you know, you're in the soft part of the stroke most of the time, but when you do hit a bump, you're on the harsh part, you're on the stiff part, and it's a little harsh. So, remind myself, I still have to wipe down the discs with brake cleaner. Keep forgetting to do that. So, I want to get up to Cash Road. See if I can go play. Yeah, coming from a start, you had to give it a little more gas and slip the clutch just a little bit before. Now it just picks up that much easier. They're geared very, very, I think, high from the factory. Maybe to make it softer power delivery or better fuel economy or something to do with emissions. If your emissions are supposed to be second gear at 35 miles an hour, how much noise does the motor make, let's say when you're going by at that speed? Well, if you run taller gearing, then at that speed, in that gear, you'll be turning lower RPMs and your motor will, you know, be quieter. It is weird, that quick shifter, that auto blip. I mean, if I'm here, you know, I can bang it down through the gear. A lot of times you roll off you're coming up towards a turn, so you roll off the gas and use your engine braking, and you want to bang down the gears and keep using engine braking, and it's not letting me. I have to keep a little bit of throttle. So I don't know if that's a setting or if that's just how Ducati works. Just a little critique. It is just flickable. Yeah, I guess once you get used to it, it's fine. It's a lovely, lovely little bike. And we're going to pass this guy. I say guy, probably a girl. No man drives a minivan. Wait, I used to have a Chevy Traverse. Damn it. Technically, it's classified as an SUV. I think. I hope. The old Traverse, or as Jimmy would call it, the Chevy travesty. Yeah, see here, I would much prefer to be able to downshift with auto blip without having to give it gas, because then it takes away the engine braking. Upshift is good though. I do have to be careful in here. I had a deer run out in front of the Mustang one day. Wesley's house. I think that's his road coming up on the right. Weasley. We'll give him a little blip. There you go, Wesley, just for you. Oh, something on my nose. Itches. Fun little bike. Yeah, the gearing definitely made it feel good. I like it. If it were my bike, would I leave it there? Yeah, I'd have to get it on the interstate just to see how buzzy it is. Let's do that. Let's take it up on the interstate. I wanted to hit a couple more twisty roads, but it feels great. It's smooth. The power is very good. I mean, it's just, there's really nothing so far that it doesn't seem to do well. You know, like I said, suspension could be a little better, but the gearing definitely made it more lively. I mean, it's so wheelie happy. If I turned off the wheelie control, it'd just be burp, burp, just popping up. At least the first 2 gears. I'm sure you can pop it up on third if you clutch it. But first is like stupidly easy. Second, it'll come up on its own. But it's the low speed manners, you know. I'm not trying to make this into a wheelie bike. My wife does not like wheelies. And I'm not the hugest fan either. I would much rather have that power transmitted into going faster forward rather than fighting to keep the front end down, because when that happens, I'm either having to cut back on power or the bike is, you know, if the electronics are left on. So wheelies most of the time slow you down. They may look cool to your buddies, but I'd rather go faster. There's also the whole thing of, well, you can't steer when your front end is off the ground. Yeah, cruising along in fourth. Really nice pull now. Just, it's not mass. I'm not saying like, oh, it feels like you gained 30 horsepower, but you absolutely feel those kind of gearing changes. Going up 2 teeth on the back, which is almost like going down 1 on the front. My go-to gearing change on most bikes is 1 tooth down on the front sprocket. Most bikes, that is ideal. It gives you extra drive. You're not really giving up much top speed, if anything. In fact, there have been cases of bikes that by lowering the gearing slightly, you actually increased your top speed, because the way the gearing was before, you'd be in top gear, you'd shift into 6th, you know, from 5th, and you'd want to go and you want to go faster, but you kind of hit an aerodynamic wall and your RPMs are too low down in the rev range because it's geared too tall. That was the problem I had with the Z900, my old FC1. So you had that where the bike just doesn't make enough horsepower to overcome the aerodynamics at that RPM range. So you switch into 6, and let's just, to make the math simple, you had an 8,000 RPM or 10,000 RPM limit. You shift into 6, you're at 7,500. You need to be at 9,000 RPMs where you have enough horsepower to keep pushing into the wind. So a lot of times you'd hit an aerodynamic wall with the higher gearing. You say, well, the gearing makes it go faster. Not always. Only if you've got the horsepower. It's a calculation. There's a bunch of things, the drag coefficient and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes by lowering the gearing a little bit, when you do switch into 6, you're at 8,500 RPMs. You're much closer to your peak horsepower, and so the engine will keep pulling. That's the problem. If your RPMs are too low in top gear, and you just don't have the horsepower, you don't have a Busa or an R1 or something like that, these mid-powered bikes, you can't get to your peak horsepower. So you lower the gearing a little bit, make the gears shorter, and then when you get into that top gear, you're actually close to where your max power is, and so you can get that revs there to be able to keep pulling. I have a feeling this might be one of those bikes. So we're gonna find out. Well, I don't know. We'll see if there's clear track ahead on the interstate. Maybe I'll try to go a little faster. Oh, and since the last time I rode this, I took the DB killers out of the Termi exhaust. Oh my god, do they sound good. There's so much popping and crackling on downshifting. They just bark. It's very nice. Come on, why has everybody got to be exactly 50 yards apart? Pulls nice, man. On my bike, I might even go up one more tooth. But feeling the power and seeing how it was slowing that acceleration I was getting into 5th and 6th. To that other channel, the guy was saying, oh, it'll do 160. No, this bike will not. We got the exact same bike, same mods. Actually, mine's geared stronger than his. No way it'd hit 160, no matter how you gear it. It just does not have that kind of power. What I do wish I could do, I wish this had a steering damper. I noticed when you get 6 triple digits, it starts feeling a little twitchy. But in 6, man, it definitely has more pull. You don't feel it bogging as much. So we're going along and let's just drop down to 80 miles an hour. We're doing 5,500 RPMs. That is perfectly fine. That's not too buzzy. It probably would have been 5150. Great album. Before. So you raise the revs 350 RPMs, top gear. That's not a big deal. You're just cruising along fairly lazily. And you still got another 5,000 revs if you wanted to accelerate. Well, maybe not that much. I forget what red line is. 9,500, 92.5, something like that. But you give it gas and it doesn't snap your arms back. But it's definitely just a nice, steady pull. Before, when I played with it in 6, you had to be going like well over 80, or it would be kind of, it was fighting. It was lugging a little bit. Now the RPMs are up a little bit more. The gearing is a little bit more optimal for acceleration. The motor's not having to work as hard because you got more mechanical advantage. Yeah, I don't know if I would gear it down anymore. 2 teeth might be like the perfect range for this bike. Feels fantastic. And at low speeds, it's not chugging anymore. Good noise. People see Ducati, they hear it, they're like, that's a super fast bike, and it's just not. I mean, it's quick, but good. I definitely like this bike. I would say that, you know, this is right there with like a Duke 890. You know, the Street Triple RS is a little more power but less torque, has more horsepower. But I would think that if they had, we mentioned last time, even just show us single function forks and a Sachs adjustable shock, just that level of adjustability, that little bit would put it on par with a Duke 890R and Street Triple R and stuff like that. It's got the power, it's got the electronics, it's got the look, it's got the sound, it's got the brakes. It just needs that extra step of refinement on the suspension. If you wanted to take it to the mountains or a track day, and you wanted to hang with the Duke 890R or Street Triple R or Street Triple RS, MT-09, things like that. If you want to just kind of take it to that next level, that's where you'd have to make your improvements. Got a little Beamer 3 Series, been falling behind and then pulling up on my ass trying to go fast, so I just wheel it away from them, left them there. There we are. That'll do, pig. That'll do.